Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore alongside Brandon Craftsman. I'm Ben Schneider. Casey Campbell and Josh Birch are both off tonight. Brandon, how's it going?
It's going all right, Ben, and it's going to be on Grid Live Encore for another, what should be another kind of a quicker episode, but we do have plenty to talk about and looking to get into the weekend that was Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, I think the length of the show is going to really depend on where the conversation takes us. All right, I did it again. I forgot to take the check off of the loop here.
It's okay. We're so psyched. We got to throw that intro one more time.
There we go. Like I was saying, obviously I know this show started. It was just you and me at the very beginning when we were doing this a little over a year ago. Trying a little bit something different with the format tonight. I'm not going to say it's completely unscripted, but we really just have questions laid out. Obviously, I'm going to go through my F2 rundown real quick at the end there. Of course, we wish Josh Birch well. I know he's doing a little bit under the weather this weekend, so certainly wish him the best and for speedy recovery so he can join us back here soon. But, Brandon, I just want to start off, a little bit more conversationally with an open segment like we often do on this show. Of course, before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, and David. Thank you so much for your support. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon or through Buy Me a Coffee. Link to those is in the description box below. But Brandon, I think there's been a lot of strong takes this weekend, particularly after the races in the series that we regularly cover here, Trucks and Xfinity, and the kind of racing that we saw, maybe not so much racing at times as it was kind of a demolition derby out there, it seemed. What's your take on the current state of Atlanta Motor Speedway 2 years into this Atlanta Superspeedway experiment, if you will? Because I know it's a very divisive topic.
Man, has it already been 2 years?
Well, this will be the second year.
Okay, so right. Okay, gotcha.
Year. Yeah.
Wow, I was having to check myself there for a minute. Yeah, Atlanta Motor Speedway, being Atlanta Super Speedway is really what we should be calling it. I wonder if that name ever will change, but probably not because of the SMI ties and all that. But the banking was raised. We had those two races last year with that fresh pavement, and it just became this hybrid of it's like Daytona and Talladega, but just condensing it down to a 1.5 mile area. It makes for some really just on the edge of your seat, very paranoid kind of racing, as I would assume, just being tightly knit packs the whole time, but in just this closed quarters, closed space. And surprisingly, the Cup Series guys handled it really well Sunday afternoon, most of it just going green. But where we really had our issues, though, were the Craftsman Truck Series and the Xfinity Series at Atlanta. So just looking at this past weekend in particular, the track surface aging already a year old, you can kind of tell how it's changed with the aging of the track. It's not as black as it was. It's kind of more of a gray now. Hopefully that aging process will help things, help the racing product a little bit more. But it was the Trucks and the Xfinity Series we really need to talk about because it was pretty bad out there as far as just trying to keep some green flag laps going. And I don't know if this is just the rookies in the field. We do say that a lot, or if it's something to do with the track itself. I honestly, in my personal opinion, I didn't see what was wrong with just doing a simple repave of Atlanta and getting that track to, give the patience for a few years for it to age again, and then we can get back to that product we know and love. But some people that make more money than we do and have a higher position than we do thought it would be best for financially to make what we have now, which is the very banked Atlanta Super Speedway. And it's kind of dangerous. It seems dangerous, but I mean, we're not there, and it seems dangerous. It seems like it's putting these drivers on edge, and maybe this is what they wanted. I'm sure the fans love it. I'm sure it's a blast to be there to see it. I went to Atlanta in 2018, so I did see it in its former state when it was very cracked and very bruised, and the driver said, don't pave it. But I really wonder how this track is going to age, if any, as far as handling, or if we're just going to see year after year this type of racing that is good for now, but are really hope it's not a safety issue in the future. I'm sure they consider these things, but it's very antsy racing compared to Talladega and Daytona. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to touch on there. Obviously, like I said, it's a hot topic, especially whenever we go there now in these 2 dates a year. I don't think the name is going to change. I mean, if anything, they've gone in the opposite direction. Dover, what was Dover Downs International Speedway, my home track is now Dover Motor Speedway. I'm still not used to that.
Sorry.
So they seem to have they like their motor speedways.
They do.
SMI. Although now when I think about it, there's Sonoma Raceway, right? So I don't know. I mean, I know about the course, so it's a little bit different. But anyway, you hit the nail on the head, I think, with Xfinity and trucks in particular. And Matthew Bro was talking about this on Wrap Up yesterday. Obviously, this isn't an Atlanta issue by itself. There seems to have been, with the current generation, and I don't want to, make a blanket statement and throw every single driver under the age of 25 or whatever in Xfinity or trucks under the bus, but I feel like the current generation, and I'm just thinking, myself here, I'm about to turn 24 this summer. I was a kid when NASCAR came out and said boys have at it. It was like the third or fourth season I was watching the sport. So I almost don't know a world different. And if these kids are younger than us, coming up through these ranks in ARCA, trucks, and Xfinity, they certainly don't know a different world than the boys have at it era, if you will. So I think that there's that maturity factor. And again, not simply an Atlanta issue, but we can have that issue at every track we go to. But when you turn Atlanta into a mini Daytona or Talladega and bring that style of racing, which is already close and dangerous, like you were mentioning, and you put it on a track that's a mile shorter, I think you're inviting trouble, especially for drivers that sometimes don't necessarily know where the limit is and sometimes go a little bit over it, or sometimes the immaturity kicks in and they don't race with enough common sense, like what you see in the Cup Series. So I think we saw a mix of that all throughout trucks and Xfinity. Obviously it seemed like it was almost impossible to get a green flag run going, and obviously we'll go into a little bit deeper detail in each of those races here later in the show. But I just think if you're a race fan and you have a local home track that you really like and can attend races at, particularly at the national touring series level, if you hear the words reconfiguration, I don't know that there's a great track record with improving the product here, because I think a lot of fans, and again, I'm sure people are going to say that the mentality is just, it's the boomer mentality of older is better, but they reconfigured Phoenix once and took out the grass and the dog leg, and people didn't like that, and then they doubled down on Phoenix and completely changed the location of the start finish line and the layout of a track there. I think this is not an unpopular opinion. They've completely destroyed Texas Motor Speedway, and they've tried to fix it with the PJ1 and everything in the track. I think every time we go there now, people are saying bulldoze it and turn it into a Walmart. I think that's a very, very unpopular track at this point after what they did there. And I'm afraid, this Atlanta Motor Speedway now, what we've done, some people are going to have a similar opinion of that track if they don't already. Maybe a few years from now, as the surface continues to age, and I know we were talking before we went live here, is this super speedway style racing going to be something that's feasible in a few years if the surface continues to degrade and the grip level continues to go away? Is this package even going to be a possibility, which is the whole point of redesigning the track? So, obviously it was time to repave it. They probably squeezed 1 or 2 more years out of it than they should. But I'm with you. I would have been patient enough to say, look, the racing may not have been as great as it was last year, but we just repaved it. Let's give it some time, and eventually it'll age out and we'll get the same great Atlanta racing that we always got. I suppose from a logistics perspective, there's never a better time to reconfigure than if you got to repave a track anyway, since you're already doing so much work. But I personally, I don't think that this has been, such a unanimous, fans looking at this and having a unanimous opinion that this was absolutely an improvement and better than what we had here at Atlanta before the reconfiguration. And I think that, the whole point of it was to try to improve the racing, improve the product. I don't know that we've gotten to that point, especially in the Xfinity and Truck Series races, which at times, because of how many cautions we were seeing, were borderline unwatchable.
Yeah, it was really sad with the trucks in Xfinity, and I hope that as we go on, I mean, of course, it's not going away, so we have to um,
Right.
learn to deal with the cards we're dealt. But we, I really hope that the patience level as these for the trucks and Xfinity is going to increase over the years. They're going to have to give some sort of level of patience here because this track style is not going to change at Atlanta now, and I'm just surprised at how I'm not surprised, but like you look at the cup race, it was just so. I mean, I'm not really a fan of that sort of racing personally, but they were able to keep it green, and I mean, albeit single file some of the times, and look at the
Yeah.
Xfinity series, and if they were just so tired of it being yellow for so many different times, they just decided to. It looked like they just all agreed in unison. You know what? Just hook it to the high side and keep it single file, so we can get to the end of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that might have been part of it as well. Maybe they watched the Xfinity truck races and said, let's, take it a little bit easier for the first and second stages and just make sure we get to the end first, and then we can have our race in the third and final stage. I just checked the Gluck poll. I personally voted no because, again, this just isn't my kind of racing, and I felt like, it was single file for much of it. I know we did get an exciting finish, but I don't think a great finish can completely make up for, the poll doesn't ask, did Atlanta have a good finish? Was Atlanta a good race? So you have to take the whole race into consideration in my mind.
Yeah.
But it's 52 yes, 48 no on Jeff Gluck's weekly was it a good race poll. So I mean that tells you how split
right.
it is in terms of fan opinion there. So
And look,
I don't know.
the truck series and Xfinity series, there's really no excuse. Another one of my opinions. I don't really, as an outsider though, I don't really think there's any excuse for the truck series and Xfinity series to have that bad of a product. They should be at that level. The top three series, they should be able to race competently, at least to not break the record. I mean, they were acting so surprised on the television whenever we broke the record for cautions at Atlanta. Like, well, yeah, because this isn't Atlanta. This is the new Atlanta product. So this is going to be a whole different scale. But still, for some reason, well, I guess the Truck Series and Xfinity Series rookies and all are still figuring this place out. But coming into the future years, there's got to be some change as far as how it's driven, because you're in the top three series of the sport. You can't be doing those things and expect them to work. And I don't know if it's just the influx of rookies again, or I sound like a broken record now. If it's the influx of rookies, or if it's just the nature of the racing. But I mean, it's not that bad at Talladega or Daytona, but we've been going there for years.
Yeah, well, and I'll catch up on the chat here in a second, but just to bounce off a couple more points there. I think Justin Allgaier, when he got out of his car for his post-race interview, he basically said this is an embarrassment for our sport, to put on a product like this, and the fans deserve better. And there's actually a tweet from one of my mutuals on Twitter, Hunter Wofford, who I guess was at the race. I don't know him too well. I just, he's a mutual follow on social media, but he tweeted out, I guess this would have been yesterday. So as the Cup race was going on, I can't believe I wasted $150 on this fill in the blank. Brought my little brother along for his first race, and it's hard to keep him occupied now. I think this will be the last trip I make to Atlanta for a while. What a joke, man. So
those stands were filled. Well, they weren't that filled on Friday and Saturday, and Fox made sure that we got to see every single fan, didn't they?
Oh man,
I'm sorry to put you on that one.
Yeah,
but Sunday it was pretty filled. I hope we still see that same attendance in the coming years. I think, of course, the Cup Series race was the best product all weekend, bar none. But I hope the aging process of the track will help things as well. I was surprised to see a quote, I think that Chase Briscoe gave to PRN at some point in their garage pass that we carry at my station here. He said something about the handling being a factor at Atlanta, and by watching that, there's no way we're thinking that, but that's cool. That's cool at least to see from a driver's perspective that possibly there is some sort of handling being a factor in that's only going to increase hopefully as it ages again.
Yeah. Well, and I think, a tweet like this, I'm sure Hunter wasn't alone. I'm sure there were fans that were there that loved it. I'm not, trying to put all the fans in a box here, but they always say, like, you'll never have a bad time if you actually go to the racetrack. Well, clearly, a couple of people
Somebody had a bad time.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. So again, but like you said, we're not advocating for them to tear the place up again. We've got what we've got for the next several years, but I'm starting to think this might have been a mistake. I don't know that, the reception has been as positive as they were anticipating it might be. Trying to give the fans another super speedway race. And, I guess I will give NASCAR some credit for being, for continuing to think outside the box with the schedule, and try new ideas. But this is one that I think they probably should have, just left on the drawing board and not actually, put out there in reality.
I mean, it's one of those deals that they went through iRacing first and tried to, they went through that design first and tried to have it simulated out. I do applaud SMI and NASCAR for working together, and also for working with iRacing to try to make something out of a new repave. I mean, you can't blame them for trying.
Sure.
There's a lot of great engineering that went into that, and I really enjoyed following the progress updates. I remember when they were paving this place, just getting updates from, I think, Tyler Head, possibly. Is that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the grounds crew there working on that. I mean, it's just really cool to watch them do that. And I was kind of optimistic about it before we got the first race. And you know what? I actually enjoyed the first race in the spring of last year. It was the one that Byron won. It was kind of enjoyable, but I don't remember too much the truck and Xfinity events last year, springtime, either, though. So again, this might just be a lower series issue.
Well, yeah, and I mean, maybe the fact that we can't recall much of what happened there,
that may also be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that says they weren't so memorable. I remember, on wrap up, this was before you even joined Grid, Brandon. My first year after the July race, I think it was the July race at Atlanta. We had a whole segment on drivers speaking out against the Atlanta changes. Like it hadn't even happened yet, and they were already saying, "I think we're making a mistake here. I don't know if this direction that we need to be going." So again, I mean, it's going to be very interesting because this is what we've got for the next however many years before they need to repave it or decide to try something different again. It's not going to be an every couple of year thing, but I think it's going to be very interesting to watch the evolution of this track going forward as the surface ages.
It was a lot of money, so yeah, I hope they were sure.
That leads us right into the chat.
There it is.
All about the money for SMI. Texas is next. Well, that I to be honest with you, that is, I think, the one thing that they could do to Texas that would make it more frustrating for me than what we currently have there. If they just decide to clone Atlanta, and do that to reconfigure Texas Motor Speedway, I think, even if you like the Atlanta product, let Atlanta be the mini super speedway on the schedule. I don't think we need.
Don't make another one.
And then you got 8 super speed. Well, I don't know. I don't even remember. Texas, I guess, had the All-Star race, which went to North Wilkesboro. Whatever, 7 or 8 super speedway style races. You're getting close to a quarter of the schedule there. I don't think that it's the whole road course thing again, right? It's a great product, but part of what makes it special is we don't do it that often, right? So
yeah, and I'm afraid they're trying to appeal to the young NASCAR fan that believes that all NASCAR is just cars go fast as they can around big speedway, and we all watch. Like there's so much more to it than that. And if you make the majority of the schedule this product, it loses its luster, and it makes a mockery out of what the sport once was.
No doubt. Well, like I said, let's continue catching up on the chat here. Our own Matthew Bro stopping by via Facebook. How do y'all feel about Eric Almirola in the 08 for Greenlight for this coming week? In addition, Allmendinger in the number 10, Byron in the 17, Gibbs in the 19. Notable entries for Coda as well. How do you feel about Cup guys running Xfinity road courses? I think that's a rhetorical question. They know which side we fall on.
Exactly what side
Josh Birch falls on. It's maybe a good thing that he's not here tonight. Not a good thing that he's ill, but we went through that whole deal with Kyle Busch on this show a couple of weeks ago. Brandon, I apologize. What were you going to say there?
Oh, and I was saying we know exactly what we think about Cup guys running Xfinity
Sure.
already. But I mean, road courses. I have a soft spot for Cup guys going down to run the road courses. But yeah, overall, we know exactly what Josh thinks. I know what you think.
Yeah. And I think we'll save that because I've got a question coming up in the show. Actually, on this particular note here, Adam Lemery's referring to the Goodyear tire test for the Truck Series North Wilkesboro today. I think our own Kobe Lambeth sent a retweet out. On a short video clip of that happening. It still feels like a fever dream in many respects. So, I know the date's getting closer here, but that is one thing I will give all credit in the world to NASCAR for, getting that project up and running. And, I personally can't wait for the truck race there and the All-Star race as well. A little concerned about how many Cup driver announcements are coming out that are running that truck race though, which again, I think we'll get into that here a little bit later on. But, in terms of the hype surrounding the event, it's hard to imagine how it could be any bigger right now. So it's good to see progress continue to be made there. Day in the Life also says all the Cup races have had few cautions until the third stage. I do wish Craftsman and Xfinity drivers would do practice and have more patience. That's another good point. I just watched right before we came onto the show. I ended up watching Haley Deegan just posted her race vlog on her YouTube channel, and she was saying it feels like the pandemic era again. Practice is gone, qualifying got washed out, so we're just going to jump in and race. I think particularly a track like this and a lot of drivers, young drivers, maybe rookies in the series that haven't raced on it before, that seems like a recipe for disaster to me. What's the harm in, giving these drivers, half an hour of practice or an hour of practice? I think, that might go a long way as well. Brandon, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Oh yeah. Of course, I'm not there, but I do think any driver would benefit from more seat time, and any attempt to take away seat time before the drop of the green flag doesn't seem like a great idea, especially for rookies in the developmental series. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. We want them to. I mean, if there's time allotted during the weekend for them to do that, why are we? And also time for fans to come out and see the cars on track. Why aren't we letting them do that?
Yeah, well, it looks like, I don't know, maybe the Twitch algorithm's being friendly towards us. Of course, most of our viewers come from YouTube. We do stream on a couple of other platforms as well. Acho Vic here, I think he's maybe making reference to the hatch you've got on there, Brandon. Of course, Fernando Alonso picking up his 100th podium this weekend. So
that's exactly what it's for.
Again to everybody at Aston Martin there. Sacker 4T says, what are your thoughts on the future promise of karting Sejudo Jackson? I must confess I'm not familiar with that name, but I will look into that after the show. So good to see a couple of viewers on the Twitch side of things as well. And Adam Lemery's bringing this up again. Alex Bowman will be in the 7 truck for Spire Motorsports in North Wilkesboro. It's hard to keep track. I know that's at least the third announcement because I know Byron's going to be there, and I think Christopher Bell was announced this week as well, right? So there's a couple of different announcements that have come out in the last couple of weeks, and again, we'll get into that discussion when we get into our Truck Series segment here. But yeah, I mean that's the one thing that's been frustrating about getting ready for North Wilkesboro. Obviously, it's not just a Kyle Busch issue, like I said on the Encore show last week. I like consistency here at Grid Network. I'm going to remain consistent no matter who the driver is. So on that note, actually, again, nice little segue here. I think that what our top story was in the Xfinity Series was very popular based on who it involved here. But I do want to have a conversation about what Josh Williams did, kind of stealing the spotlight in the Xfinity race. He was parked by NASCAR under the damaged vehicle policy. There was an issue with a piece of bear bond or tape or whatever. It was inadequate repairs in NASCAR's eyes. They decided to park him, and so he responded by parking his car on the start-finish line, walking out, waving to the fans. Brandon, I'm just going to let you – I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to let you go here, give your thoughts on what we saw from Josh Williams and his antics on Saturday.
Well, everyone cheered him, and it seemed like a lot of social media was cheering him too. But the big narrative I saw floating around was, imagine if this was a Kyle Busch or imagine if this was Bubba Wallace or someone else coming out and just parking it on the start finish line, giving their piece out and walking away. People would cry for them to be penalized. So I think whatever NASCAR has been inconsistently consistent on here, they should stay the course and do what they're going to do. But if there was no precedent here, I would, if it was me, if it was up to me and there was no precedent, I would penalize them for that. That's a safety issue, and that's clearly got to be against many rules of just, again, getting out of your car at the start finish with a hot track and walking across the grass all the way back to the infield. I mean, this is a really easy softball question, if you will. Like, there's no question about it. Like, this is very wrong. You need to be penalized. But
yeah, well, I mean, and again, I don't want to be like a party pooper here or anything, because I know, fans were loving it and social media was loving it, and I think Free Josh might have been trending. Denny Hamlin offered to pay any fine that's coming Josh Williams' way here, and I think a fine for sure is coming his way. I guess we'll know probably tomorrow. Tuesday's usually when the penalties get announced. But I think, again, you hit the nail right on the head. Like, imagine the Facebook comments if that had been Bubba Wallace. Imagine the Instagram comments if that had been Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin or, a controversial figure in the Cup Series. Like, I don't think we would be treating this with the same level of praise that we're giving Josh Williams here. And again, I don't want to completely throw Josh Williams under the bus because, we certainly, I write for Brock Beard and LastCar.info. I love the single car teams, the underdog teams of this sport, particularly in Xfinity and trucks. But again, just looking at it, like, take the driver out of it. A guy gets out of his car, parking it on the start finish line, walks out across a hot racetrack's infield, and just leaves his car there. I got to think NASCAR's not going to take too kindly to that. And obviously they didn't, because they not only called him to the hauler, they kept him in the hauler for the entire race before the race was over, so that they could make sure that they ended up bringing the right people in to talk to him. So I'm sure they're going to take this very seriously. Like I said, we'll know a little bit better tomorrow what exactly is going to come out of it. But again, I think, depending on who the driver is in this scenario, I think fans might be looking at this situation a little bit different. When you take, the driver out of it and just look at the situation here, I think we've got some problems.
Yeah, but ideally here, NASCAR needs to be the blind eye of justice and needs to say, no, that this is wrong. You need to be penalized. It's like Talladega Nights level antics. I mean, getting out of your car at start finish and walking away. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, I think I said that on wrap up yesterday. I don't know I forget if it was when we were backstage or actually on the show, but like if that happens in a movie, obviously it's hilarious and everybody's going to love it. But
yeah,
this is real life.
It's real life.
Like you mentioned at the start of the show, Brandon, it's not just Atlanta. This sport is a dangerous sport, and I just don't think you can be doing stuff like that. And I think A Day in My Life agrees here, calling for a race ban, saying I was not cheering him. The race was horrible, and Josh was being stupid. Well, there you go. So again, I don't think the praise was necessarily unanimous there either. Although Kobe brings this up as well. It was quickly deleted, I noticed, but Antonio Brown saw it. And of course, if you're familiar with Antonio Brown's antics with how he ended up leaving the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I guess a little more than a year ago, if I trying to do the math in my head right, it was a very similar situation. You just walked off the field and waved to the fans, and some of the fans were loving it. Others said this guy needs some help. So again, very polarizing figure there, but kind of amusing because I guess not exactly the same situation, obviously, but a similar kind of deal there, I suppose.
Yeah, it was silly seeing that. It's just one of those things that you're not going to forget when you saw Josh Williams get out and just walk away. Yeah, it's going to stick with me.
All right, well, let's move on here. Let's pull the race results back up for just a second and talk about Austin Hill, the race winner, 3 of the first 5 Xfinity races this season. Brandon, when you look at what this guy has done, in recent races on super speedways in particular, do you think Austin Hill's the best super speedway racer in NASCAR outside of a Cup Series right now?
I think he's one of the best racers outside of the Cup Series right now, and he's showing that so far this season. Not just super speedways. I think he's on a championship hunt, and he's showing it early. And really, if RCR had the desire to, they need to be putting him in a third car and put him in the 33 in the Cup Series next season. I think that's how imminent this rise to the top is for Austin Hill. I really think it's going to come from him this year, and it's looking really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Austin Hill has really stepped it up over the last couple of years, especially since he joined RCR in the Xfinity Series. And you bring up a good point as well. I think he got one start in that 33 car last year. It might have been Michigan, if I recall correctly. So that could be an option. Obviously, it's a lot harder to run an open car these days, but teams still managed to pull that off. And I'm sure RCR certainly would be one of those teams that could do it if they find the right partners and right opportunity. So yeah, I mean, I think, you really have to start looking at Austin Hill as one of the top prospects for a Cup ride in the not too distant future. I think obviously the super speedway style racing is really his biggest strength, but if you look past that, I think he's put together an impressive resume in the Xfinity Series as a whole, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And he also deserves a lot of credit for hanging on to that car as they were coming to the checkered flag there, because it was a bit of a crazy finish. I do want to get your thoughts on this as well, Brandon. I think Daniel Hemrick came under a lot of fire and criticism for his role in the finish to the Xfinity race. He was right behind Austin Hill and Parker Kligerman, who looked like they were going to be in a drag race for the win. He kind of got into Kligerman, and that sent Kligerman up alongside Austin Hill. Kligerman ends up getting finished off by Hemrick as they come to the line. Still came across the line backwards in fourth, but Daniel Hemrick ended up getting second place, although maybe not in the most popular way he could have. So what was your take on the finish of the race there? And do you think Daniel Hemrick, it was just kind of a racing deal, or do you think he maybe crossed the line in terms of how he raced Parker Kligerman there at the end?
Really, when I saw it the first time, Ben, I think it's just a racing deal. I think they were just coming to the line there, and when I saw it live, I didn't even notice Hemrick being the issue there. I just saw all of a sudden Kligerman behind there just getting turn over and crossing the line backwards. It wasn't really until I saw the question for the show tonight that I noticed Hemrick was even the guy behind him, if that shows you how much I was paying attention. But I think what really needs to be defined here is, where is the line to cross? If Atlanta wants to do this, no going below the line rule like Daytona and Talladega, they need to go ahead and decide that now and not run a few years without implementing that and then decide later because of X or Y or Z incident, how we make rules around here. But we need to go ahead and set it now, because Hemrick did, I guess, go over the red line at Atlanta, I guess it is, a little bit. I don't know how much that played a factor into the incident. I think really it was just them all colliding there to the line, causing that. I don't think Hemrick was really at fault.
Yeah, well, I know, obviously I'm not a fan of the WO line rule at Daytona or Talladega either. So, I can't say that, that's something that, when I look at that, I think that was what people were trying to defend Hemrick with at first, saying, if he goes below the WO line, NASCAR's been consistently inconsistent, as they have on a lot of things over the years in terms of how they hand out penalties for that. I gotta say, for my own vantage point, when I first saw it, I did think Hemrick was at fault. Obviously, I'm not driving the race cars. I don't think it was necessarily. It's not like we saw the gloves make a turn and it was the most blatant thing ever, right rear hooking somebody or anything like that. But I think he certainly could have maybe tried to get off of him a little bit coming to the line. But I understand in some respects it is the last lap. Kind of all bets are off at that point. So I don't think in terms of like a fine or a penalty, like a suspension of any kind is coming his way. I think that's probably going to be very unlikely. I think the one who needs to be worried about the penalties this weekend is obviously Josh Williams, but it certainly it made for an entertaining finish in the minds of some of those kinds of fans, I suppose. There was certainly a lot of carnage coming to the line there. I'd like to congratulate Parker Kligerman on a great run. I think it's kind of unfortunate how it all played out, regardless of what you think of Hemmer's role in it, because it really was looking like it was going to be a nail biter photo finish coming to the line with him and Austin Hill, and that would have been a great run for Kligerman and the whole Big Machine team, obviously. But they still, the car is obviously torn up at this point, but they still came home with fourth place result there. So they can still take that, hopefully, and have that be a momentum boost for them and that team as they continue to march on throughout this season. Now let's move on to the truck race and talk a little bit about the winner there, Christian Eckes, and the McAnally Hilgeman Racing team, the 19 truck picking up a win. Obviously, that's huge for not just Christian Eckes, but Bill McAnally as well, a mainstay in the ARCA Menard Series West for many, many years, finally getting a truck win. Brandon, when we look at this, obviously it's huge for both of them, but just how massive of a deal do you think this is for both of them going forward?
I think it's really big for both of them, especially for Christian Eckes coming off that year with ThorSport and his really tough year in 2021, and maybe finally starting a season right here. And with Bill McAnally and the Napa Auto Parts scheme, that really famous scheme from K&Ns, making their way to the Truck Series. And I think it's one of the best looking trucks in the field. And Christian Eckes seems really pumped about this win. And hopefully this will be a great catalyst for them to be a contender along with all the other mainstays in the Truck Series. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, Brad, and Bill McAnally's been in the West Series for a long time. I think it's a 3 decades plus partnership that he has with Napa Auto Parts. So it's been a very long lasting partnership and very successful business deal that they've had over the years. And for Christian Eckes, obviously, as well, I think he said in his post-race interview in Victory Lane, this deal came together later in the offseason than he would have liked. He was wondering for a while what he was going to be doing after, the ThorSport deal came to an end. And so I think for him to get this win is going to be a huge confidence boost, momentum boost for him. And he's yet to finish worse than 6th this year if you look at his results in the first 3 races. So that whole team has obviously stepped it up quite a bit. I do feel kind of bad for Derek Kraus, who, of course, won a West Championship for McAnally and had a lot of success with that team, helped build this truck program. I know he got to run the Daytona race with Young's Motorsports. So it's been a little while since we've seen him on track. Hopefully he can put a deal together for something as this season continues on. But for Christian Eckes, obviously it's huge for him and it's huge for the whole McAnally organization to get a Truck Series win for a team that's known for their West Series dominance over the years. It's a massive step up for them. And I think sometimes people might not realize just because a team is a top team in one series, when they try to make the jump up, that jump can oftentimes be a lot bigger than people realize here. I think you're kind of seeing it with Colleague in the Cup Series right now. Obviously they've really turned into a championship caliber Xfinity program, but the Cup success doesn't just come overnight. Obviously they got the one win with Allmendinger on the road course at Indianapolis in 2021 before they were even full time, but there's always going to be some growing pains when you take that step forward. And for a team that races in a regional series to branch out to a national touring series and a Truck Series, I think they've gone through some growing pains as well. But they're bringing great trucks to the racetrack, obviously, and Christian Eckes was able to close the deal. So great result for them.
Yeah, but that's good for the sport. We really need new teams that are trying to branch out and come rise to the ranks. We do need that kind of growth happening. So it's always a good sign whenever you see that happening. I did want to make a correction though. 2021, it wasn't like a bad year for Christian Eckes, but that's where he did get his last win. So I guess it's not really a bad year. But 2022, he had 8 top 5s, 15 top 10s. 2021 was like his last lull year besides the win. 2020, 7 top 5s, 2019, 3 top 5s. And then of course, 2018, his rookie season in the Truck Series being the worst, but he's on track to probably surpass his accolades from last year in 2021 at least.
Yeah, well, I think in a lot of ways it felt like a first career win because obviously, he's in a brand new environment. That team got their first victory with that program that they've had for the last few years now. So, like I said, huge momentum boost for everybody over that organization. I think they're just going to continue to get better as the season goes on. Now, we brought this up a little bit earlier. Obviously, we got some chat comments regarding this. While we're on the subject of the truck series, Brandon, I want to ask you, we've got this North Wilkesboro race coming up. Of course, there was a Goodyear tire test there today. I'm personally surprised that we're getting all these Cup driver announcements. I think a lot of people were thinking that Cup drivers wouldn't be allowed into the North Wilkesboro truck race because it's a brand new track and, could potentially be an advantage for the All-Star race in terms of getting some seat time in some respects. But when you also think of the precedent that's been set, tracks like the Chicago Street Course and the Daytona Road Course, I believe, as well, over the last couple of years, it seems like they've tried to keep Cup drivers out of those races to kind of level the playing field for the series regulars. So are you surprised that we're getting all these announcements and NASCAR is even allowing Cup drivers into this race?
I'm not really surprised, no, initially, because, look, it's North Wilkesboro. It's North Wilkesboro. We're coming back to a historic venue, and there's only so many seats there. You know how small the place is. It's going to be jam-packed. People have had these tickets for forever. I think they're thinking from a marketing standpoint, what better way to give these people their money's worth than to have a bunch of Cup regulars also in the truck series, and then you get the big all-star finale. I think it's purely from a how can we add value to the Tyson 250 as much as possible, and the answer would be to throw some Cup guys into the mix and let the truck points fall where they may. If a Cup guy gets the win, then it's going to make a great story. But I think it's purely from a boardroom perspective of how can we up the value of this event. And the truck series is, I think, going to be great on its own in North Wilkesboro. I'm really looking forward to seeing them have their own event there. I'm not really interested in having the Cup Series drivers down in that series, but not only is it going to be good for their probably from their marketing approach, but also for all these Cup guys that have never raced at North Wilkesboro. Of course they want that seat time. They have to get it somehow, and so they're taking the truck series as a way to do that. I'm sure somebody, the way that probably happened is probably some Cup Series driver asked first, and then they allowed them and let the word got around that, hey, they're letting Cup entries in. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I would understand it a lot more if we didn't have the All-Star race for the Cup drivers anyway. I think that deal, makes it a lot more difficult in my mind to justify letting the Cup guys there. Because if this was a truck standalone race and it's like North Wilkesboro's grand return, their first points-paying NASCAR race since 1996, and you want to bring a couple of Cup drivers in to hype up the event and bring a couple of big names in. As much as I don't like Cup drivers in the lower series, certainly in a situation like that, I could understand, bringing in William Byron or Christopher Bell or Alex Bowman or whoever. Dare I say it, maybe even Kyle Busch, a big name like that. Maybe Dale Jr. could get back in to NASCAR and make his truck series debut finally. I know he's too.
Now, see, everyone would love that.
Yeah. I don't think very many people would have a problem with that. Or Jeff Gordon finally driving a truck. That's been teased for a couple of years. Him maybe doing a race in Martinsville. I think, that would certainly be a cool deal. And
actually,
in the seats, but
yeah, why is Dale Jr. not in this race? He's basically the whole reason we're coming back.
Well,
having this place scanned.
I gotta think
taken
back.
Care of.
Yeah, is he All-Star eligible?
Not the All-Star race. I just mean the Truck Series race is all I meant.
Yeah. Well, because I'm thinking, he might run the, there were some talks that maybe, if he still has his eligibility from the Cup days, he might be eligible to run the All-Star race. I think they're saying the same thing about Jimmy Johnson, but that's a good point as well. Perfect opportunity for him to make his truck debut, if you ask me.
Yeah, I can't imagine him being offered that and going, no, I'll stay home. I can't see that. He loves that place. I'm gonna have to go
search it. I feel like he might have said something about it on the download in an Ask Junior one of these weeks. So
probably.
Maybe I'll go find that after the show here. But I don't think very many people would be complaining about that. But the fact that there's a Cup event there anyway, granted, I know it's just the All-Star race, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of, what does that tell you about where the event has been the last several years that I'm saying it's just the All-Star race? Because the All-Star race used to be a massive deal at Charlotte. It seemed like one of the crown jewels of our sport. But obviously the last couple of races at Texas, kind of took away that reputation that it had and turned it into something completely different. So, I think having the Cup guys there that weekend anyway, it's again, I understand from a marketing perspective, I'm sure it's going to put more fans in the seats for a truck race, but I don't know.
I mean, it was already going to be packed, wasn't it? I mean, it's North Wilkesboro. It's already
I mean,
sold out.
That's the other thing. I mean, it's the grand return of North Wilkesboro. I would like to think of the truck series. It's not like it's the Cars Tour. There's a late model race that's the undercard of the Cup Series All-Star race. Like the trucks
that was basically sold out.
Yeah, they're on national television every weekend. They have enough fans that follow, all the time anyway. I don't know. I don't think that do the Cup guys help. I'm sure they do. Are they absolutely necessary? I have a hard time buying into that.
It might be a placebo. They think it's necessary. They just assume it's necessary, and it may not actually be, but that's what they decide. So that's what we get.
Yeah, for sure. So we move on now. Of course, like I said, Josh Birch is off tonight with an illness. We certainly wish him well, but I'm going to do my best to give a quick rundown of Formula 2 this weekend. We'll start with the sprint race. Victor Martins took pole position in qualifying and then set the fastest lap in the sprint race. Ended up driving up through the field to finish second behind Ayumu Iwasa. In the feature, it was Frederick Vesti who took the win ahead of Jack Doohan. Jahan Daruvala rounded off both podiums with a pair of third-place finishes in the two races in the Saudi Arabia round. Now, Vesti was able to take advantage of Martins and Oliver Behrman spinning out around the middle point of the race. That opened the door for him to take victory thanks to the misfortune of his rivals. And give a shout-out to Ralph Boschung as well, who holds a 1-point lead in the championship. Boschung, of course, missed much of last season due to injury, and he told motorsport.com a couple of weeks ago that 2022 likely would have been his last year in Formula 2 had he not been hurt, but he wanted to come back and finish strong this year in 2023 and has confirmed this will be his final season in the series in which he first debuted in 2017. He also mentioned he's pondering his future beyond this year, maybe interested in the IndyCar series or prototype ride in IMSA or WEX. So we'll see what the future holds for Ralph Boschung, but certainly wishing him the best. I know last year was obviously very hard on him being out of the car for so long. Good to see him off to a great start to the season, getting that season opening win, and of course, holding on to a points lead that's albeit very small right now, but I'll talk more about that in a second here as we get into the one shining moment. But Brandon, I'll turn it over to you first. When we look at the Atlanta race weekend, and I know you said you didn't get to catch the Formula 2 race live, but we'll throw that in there as well. Thinking of all those things, what's your one shining moment from what came out of this past weekend in racing?
I didn't take too much time to think about it, so I'm going to let you go first.
All right, I will go first then and just continue the theme here. Pulling the Formula 2 standings up here, like I mentioned, Ralph Boschung has a 1-point lead over Theo Porcher, who is 1 point ahead of Ayumu Iwasa, who is only 3 points ahead of Frederick Vesti, and those are your 4 race winners so far this year, separated by just 5 points. I know it's still early, but it looks like this Formula 2 championship is very wide open, which is great because I don't think we can say the same thing about the F1 championship at this point in time. Maybe we get lucky and we get a battle between Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen if Perez can kind of pull a Nico Rosberg here and at least make the team battle a little bit interesting. But I think most people have picked Verstappen and just run away with it. So hopefully Formula 2 can deliver on what looks like it's going to be a great championship battle. But the parity that we're seeing, that's my one shining moment. Looks like it's going to be another great year in Formula 2. And of course, we'll keep you updated on the season as it progresses here on Grid Live Encore. Brandon, do you have a one shining moment for us?
Yes, I do. I can't believe I forgot about it. It's what I'm wearing. Fernando Alonso getting his 100th podium. And I'll be honest with you, I actually had more fun with Formula 1 this weekend than NASCAR. And that's it's rare that happens, but I actually had more fun with Formula 1 this weekend. That's really cool. He's getting his 100th podium, and he's showing that the old guys can still do it in Formula 1. And he lost it because of the stewards, because when he came in, that little rear doohickey they put in the back, they're like, no, you can't do that. And so they waited till they already went through the procession of the awards and the anthems and everything. So he's already, gone through the cool down room and holding the trophy and everything. And then you see they pulled it away. It's like, what? You can't do that. And then later it comes, I didn't see it until I was on like the grid chat that He got it back. I was like, oh, well, great. There's my one shining moment, because that's a whole story right there. You had a lot of funny comments on it, but I'll refrain from that.
I won't rehash everything that I said on wrap up yesterday. I've reposted the clips to my own channel, so you can go check that out for my thoughts on that whole deal. Alonso, absolutely a one shining moment. The race steward's indecisiveness, not a one shining moment. I think we can say that. We definitely need to figure something out there, because we can't keep doing this back and forth sort of deal. That was kind of ridiculous, but it is official. It's over. He got his 100th podium, and that Aston Martin team is certainly off to a great start. So we'll keep following that all throughout the rest of the year on Grid Live pre-race wrap-up, maybe even Encore as well. But thanks. That's going to do it for tonight's show. So thank you all for watching, as always. Please make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're even streaming on Twitch and LinkedIn as well. Thank you again to a couple of you who tuned in on Twitch tonight. Most importantly, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers before the Indianapolis 500 later this May. If you really liked what you saw, you can join Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, and David. Help invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Once we hit $500 a month, we can continue to send our team members to a track on a more regular basis and expand our coverage for you, the viewers. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy us a coffee. That option is also in the description box below. Thank you, as always, to Edward, Amber, Zachary, and the rest of Matthew Bro's friends in that Facebook group who have bought us some coffee over the last few weeks. We truly, truly appreciate it. Now, on Wednesday, looking ahead at the Grid schedule for this upcoming week, Kobe Lambeth will bring you Grid Tonight with Matt White and Casey Campbell. I will be filling in for Joshua Birch this week as well. Joe Samaniego is back on the Women in Motorsports program on Friday with Daniel Zeri, as always. And, of course, you can stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage this upcoming weekend with pre-race wrap-up and Encore to follow. NASCAR will be in COTA, so we will have coverage of trucks and Xfinity. And ARCA East opens their season at Five Flags Speedway. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off this evening?
I'm looking forward to going back to Austin and hopefully, or possibly seeing the Dinger get the Xfinity win and probably battle Chastain again for the Cup Series win. So it's going to be another exciting weekend there. And I wish Circuit of the Americas all the best. Hope they have a great weekend with this, with the stock cars coming back again.
Yeah, Allmendinger got another opportunity to pull off the double. Of course, he came very close to that last year. I'm excited for the Cup Series. We've got a star-studded field there. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing what Jordan Taylor can do. This is a fantastic opportunity that he's got filling in for Chase Elliott. I don't know if he's going to win the race, but I think a top 10 is certainly not out of the question. I think a lot of people have compared, how the next-gen car drives to kind of like a sports car or even an open-wheel car in some respects. It much more resembles that than the previous generations of stock cars. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts, but I'm expecting some great things for him this weekend. And, of course, going to be great to see Kimi Räikkönen back, Connor Daly as well, Jenson Button, Jimmy Johnson, all sorts of big names coming into the race this weekend, and going to be a full 40-car field, it looks like, again. We haven't been able to say that since Daytona, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks, as always, for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you next week to recap COTA.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.